Hey y'all, welcome back to another episode of Pretty Suited Podcast, where we discuss personal development through a cultural lens. I am your host, Lauren A, and I am recording this episode after a very long day of some dilly-dallying. And so I'm tired, but I said I was going to do better and be more consistent. So I'm excited to be talking to you guys about this personal topic that I think has affected me several times throughout my life, but I think it's very relevant to this particular artist, and I'm talking about K. Michelle. Now, if you have been living under a rock for the past, 10 years was when she debuted? A little bit more than 10 years, maybe 12 years, 13 years since her debut album. Actually, let me do my due diligence and actually look up her first album date. Now, I did not know this, just doing a brief research of her discography, and K. Michelle has been putting out music since about 2010. So a true veteran to the game. I mean, before her first album, which I believe came out in 2013, before then, even just her putting out songs on soundtracks and things like that, she's been in the game for a very long time. So, I mean, if you have not heard of any K. Michelle songs, I advise you to go back and listen to her discography. But she's also a very, very talented artist that I feel like gets the short end of the stick sometimes. But I really want to talk about a conversation that she brought up on the Breakfast Club not too long ago. And she's been kind of having the same sentiment for a very long time due to her wanting to expand her sound. She came out around a time where there were a lot of songstress, and she had a voice, she had a presence, and she was singing songs, R&B songs that we could really, really relate to. I mean, back then in 2013, who was hot? I mean, Fantasia was hot, Keisha Cole was hot, Jasmine Sullivan was coming out. So it was really a lot of women out there singing real breakup songs, real I can't do this anymore songs. And that was kind of like her introduction into the game. So we fell in love with her type of music or her kind of content that she's had. But, if you have also followed K. Michelle, you know that she did a stint on Love and Hip Hop where she showcased more of her personality, which Homegirl is hilarious. But she can also be a bit eclectic, if you want to use a good word, or just kind of maybe too much for some people. But her personality is why we fell in love with her. And then also, she showcased and she shared with the rest of the crew that she not only graduated from college at Florida A&M, she's also a member of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. And she I think she went to school on a yodeling scholarship. So a true country girl, but also very talented, and let me not forget to mention technically trained, right? Because if you're a yodeler, like, that's not a skill set that you just gloss over. That's something that does take actual skill and talent and hard work to practice. So with that being said, you can see that there is some Southern influences that I feel like K. Michelle thinks R&B keeps her at a limit. And any creative will tell you that the worst thing you can feel is feeling like you're at a limit, that, you can't go beyond this threshold that people suspect of you, that people expect of you, that people, want to keep you in. And we don't want that. Like, she doesn't. And you could tell it's been frustrating her for years. K. Michelle has been very boisterous about coming out with more country music. Even her R&B music and her latest projects have had more of a country feel. She had a little bit more drawl in her notes. She maybe had a little bit of a change in content, which, if we want to jump into the origins of this whole thing, right? Let's be clear. African Americans, based off of the history that they carried with them throughout time in this country, even dating back into the origins of Africa, but how that pain and experience translated into different forms of music, such as bluegrass, country, rock and roll, all the things that made up American music. While we may think that some of the content is different in R&B versus country music, if we really take a look at it, it's not. It's not. I mean, if you think about the subject matter is love, heartbreak, right? Family, the love of family, maybe a little bit of drinking and partying. That's kind of been the core of what a lot of country music as well as R&B, that's what they talk about. So they share similar content matter. It's just a matter of how it's sung, right? Country music has developed way over time, just different ways to express it, different instruments, different cadences, different tones, different draws in the language. Like all of that makes it the art form that it is. And then you have R&B, which has so many different alternative formats of what that sounds like. But again, the same content matter exists, but it's just expressed differently. So while K. Michelle has been very successful in the R&B realm, she feels like where her core is, what she's experienced and how she wants to express that experience is through country music. And so she has been on a tear for a while now to figure out how she can integrate herself into the country world, meet with country artists, work with them, and develop a name for that. However, poor K. Michelle has had a very colorful past, and I would say colorful to be light, right? She's never been afraid to express her personal story. That is what we can count on, is K. Michelle telling it like it is, saying it maybe hilariously, right? Getting the key out of it, but speaking her truth.
Had a good day. Okay? Now back to the steak in the table.
And with that being said, that just sometimes came with a lot of pushback. It came with a lot of criticism. And that's the case for a lot of people, I feel like, who had a history of performing a way, of acting a way. You automatically associate them with this particular brand, i.e. loving hip hop, i.e. popping off and fighting and confrontations and things like that. But let's talk about how, that show was very successful. It just ended. In 2026, this show just ended, and it came out years ago, like over a decade ago. How many seasons, since then? How many cities that they've been in since then? And so if you're talking about, let's say K. Michelle was in her 20s when Love and Hip Hop came out with her in it, with the whole Rashida and Kirk whole situation. Let's say she was in her 20s. We're talking 10 years later, this woman is in her late 30s, early 40s, and she's like, that's not even me anymore. That I might still have the same, kind of, personality, but the way that I'm expressing it, I'm not as rowdy. I'm not as popping off at the mouth or impulsive as I was before. And how I want to express myself has changed. But unfortunately, in several occasions, we've seen people be pigeonholed to how people first were introduced to them. And that's why they always say first impressions matter. Because when you don't put off a first impression or even a second or third impression, people will take that same image of you and you'll carry that for the rest of your life. And even when you want to pivot and even when you want to change, they will hold you to that. And you'll get denied opportunities, you'll get denied experiences, or even just the ability to network with people. And unfortunately, I feel like that's one of the things that may have held her back. But, for the common person, I think this can be said, in our jobs. I think this can be said, or just any opportunity that you're looking to have. What does your past say about you? But the funny thing about it, everybody has a past. Everybody has something that they have experienced or gone through that they're happy about, or they may not be so happy about. But the question really is have you grown from it? Have you learned from it? Are you able to do better with what you have in front of you? And I think that K. Michelle has. She's went through a lot of things with her personal health, and she was getting BBLs because that was popular at the time, and breast enhancements and facial enhancements because that was the perceived ideal image of what the a superstar or R&B singer looks like. But unfortunately, as times have adjusted and changed, now she has reduced those enhancements and kind of wants to go in a different direction. But again, how people perceive you, it matters. And so I even personally have gone through this recently, even in the healthcare industry, wanting to pivot away from just solely nursing education and pivoting towards a different specialty. It had me questioning whether I should even try. I became particularly good at a certain thing. People know me for it. People have contacted me and wanted to work with me because of it and all of the things. And I'm very proud, very, very proud of the work that I've done in my personal life and professional life, with just my own development and helping others to develop. That's still a passion of mine. I still hope to maintain that and still work with that. However, even with me being in the media space, that can be a new thing to some people. And now they're like, well, aren't you that girl who was the professional development specialist who was working with the nurses? And yeah, that's me. But I also have other things that I'm interested in and other avenues that I want to pursue. And so, I think it's unfair, right, to hold people to a particular image that no longer serves them. I think it's unfair to hold people to a particular image that is not their whole self, right? People have many facets to them, and we do ourselves a disservice by not tapping into the different areas that interest you, or even that you may be talented in, but you will never figure out that talent if you never even try, or if you're not even provided the opportunity to try. So I applaud K. Michelle for even trying. I applaud her for stepping out of the R&B realm. Now, if you don't want to isolate your core fan base because people love you for, Can't Raise a Man and VSOP and all the things, if you don't want to isolate them from how they experience you, then maybe you can, of course, blend it into your music. And then hopefully, if they're true fans, they'll follow you into your new endeavor, especially if it's good. Let's be clear, too. A lot of times people want to change and pivot, but they're absolutely terrible at the new thing. Or it's like, okay, that may not be your calling. Like you may be interested in it, but it's not your calling. That's not the case here. I don't really see why she would be denied the opportunities to infiltrate that country world outside of them just holding her to the R&B, love and hip hop, a BBL image. It's so unfair, honestly, because she is a very talented woman and she doesn't deserve to have those barriers. Now, I will say this though, how you come into a room matters too. How you carry yourself matters. Rubbing people the wrong way, right? Burning bridges on your way out. All of that can influence, your ability to move forward and make connections elsewhere. Charlemagne just said in a recent Breakfast Club episode that, his relationship with Jason Lee and A$AP Rocky and all that has changed so much over the years. And he was naming so many celebrities that he's met for at least 20 years at this point, and they were completely different people at the time. Right? T.I., Snoop Dogg, all these people were completely different, very rough around the edges, in and out of jail, fighting, crime, all the things that were going on allegedly. And when you see them as grown men now, fathers and grandfathers and world-class celebrities and, ambassadors for agencies and the Olympics and things. Like, who would have thought Snoop Dogg would have been the Olympic mascot? Like gin and juice Snoop Dogg, crip walking Snoop Dogg. Who would have thought him, who's still unapologetically himself, he's literally acting the same. He's not code switching or doing anything differently. And he's still awarded and afforded the opportunities that he's getting. And it's not something that people teach you either. It's not something that you learn in the classroom. It's really something that you develop over time after falling on your face, after observing others, or even just going through something yourself. You kind of learn how to maneuver and maintain the relationships that you need in order to get where you need to go. So I hope that she didn't burn too many bridges, on her way to the top or even in her pivot. So, it's thundering. But anyways, let me go ahead and hurry up because, grandma said you got to turn the lights off when it's thundering. So I'm not going to be here too much longer, but I'm hoping that she didn't burn too many bridges and she's able to still get what she needs, because unfortunately it is still difficult for a lot of African Americans to really cross over, and not just cross over, but be successful in the country music space despite its origins. But I think there's a possibility that is changing in the near future. Beyonce broke down a lot of barriers. There's, a Mickey Guyton, there's Shabuzi. There's so many different artists right now that are coming up that I'm so happy to see getting recognition and success in that space, because I feel like music should be expressed and experienced by everyone. But let's also not neglect the fact that a lot of people also fear how successful you may be. Jealousy can come in the form of shut doors. Meaning that once people see your capability, your ability to outperform them, they close the door in your face, because out of fear of feeling less than, or, somebody overshadowing them and they're not getting the experiences or opportunities. And so they want to prevent you from getting that. So they make it either harder for you, they cut off your resources, or whatever the case may be. And I don't know if that's the case that's happening to K. Michelle, but I want everybody to be very vigilant about, sometimes rejection is redirection. Of course, maybe that opportunity wasn't the right one for you. Maybe that boss who you were trying to get that job that you wanted, and the boss was going to be a headache to work with. Them not choosing you saved you from years of a headache. Okay. So sometimes rejection is redirection, but sometimes also that rejection is people just seeing your light and it shines brighter than theirs do. And can you help that? No. Should you dim your light to help them shine brighter? Absolutely not. However, I think that you should be aware of your light, because when people aren't aware of their light, it gets misused. But if you become more aware of your light and how you yield it, then maybe you can navigate through rooms a bit easier. So that takes practice. I'm still working on figuring out my light and where to shine it and how to, get to point A to point B. But I think that's a part of life. That's a part of the journey. And it's a part of learning who you are, because, I feel like a lot of people see what you may not see in yourself. Who do you see cross genres like that? Outside of a very select celebrities or very select singers or artists cross over genres and are successful in both genres. So what she's trying to do is innovative. And if she's able to be successful in that, then she can consider herself one of the pioneers to do so. And I think that that's fantastic. So anyways, I look forward to K. Michelle's new project. It is called, I think, something in whiskey. It's always some whiskey, Jack Daniels, cognac, something. But I think I think her new album is Jesus and Whiskey, which again, but anyways, shout out to K Michelle for choosing to do what it is that she wants to do and switching things up and not being just one way and have one voice with one sound. Shout out to her for changing gears and doing things her way. So anyways, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And as always, you cannot manifest life you feel like you don't deserve. So create the life that you want. Okay. And look to the sky for grace. Bye-bye.
For all that life has in store, help